we all have heard the stories of certain organizations that if you don't hit your number, you're out. And those people end up at other organizations and they want to be in a rich environment where they can do their work. And so if you can make that a better place for them to work, they can do good work. They aren't going to chase the dollar. They're going to chase being part of this team.
Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where we explore trends, current events, and innovations impacting the logistics and supply chain industries. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. High turnover rates and labor shortages remain pressing challenges in the warehousing industry, further complicated by declining interest and persistent turnover. Given the ongoing expansion of e-commerce and the demand for efficient distribution networks, strategic workforce planning is more critical than ever before. Here to speak with me today about a platform seeking to support companies facing these types of challenges is Tim Regnier, CEO and founder of Smart Access. Welcome, Tim.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Exciting stuff to talk about.
Of course. Great to have you on the show today. Before we get started on our topic, which is team and talent retention and staffing, let's get to know each other a little bit better. So our icebreaker prompt for today is, what is the most unusual thing that's happened to you while traveling?
Okay. Well, one time my co-founder and I were in New York. This was a long time ago on a different business than what we're working on now. And we were staying near Lincoln Square in New York, and we just happened upon the Time 100 Most Influential People Awards. Okay. So all of these celebrities were ascending on this building to go in and get these awards, and there was some sort of event. And so my co-founder and I we got in there and we just started meeting all these celebrities and kind of snuck onto the red carpet. And they kind of thought that we were a little bit like part of the whole event. And so we got pictures with all these famous people and hung out with them. And one point though, I think they started to catch on that we were just like paparazzi or something. But I walked up there was Amy Poehler and Aubrey Plaza. And I said, "Can I get a picture with you?" To Aubrey Plaza. And she's like, "Fine." I held up my camera and it was facing the other way, so it was shooting out. She goes, "Oh, your mistake." And she grabbed my face and pushed me away and said, "Your mistake." And she started laughing at me. Very fun. She wasn't mean. And I didn't wash my face for a week. So that was very exciting for me anyways. I fanned out a little.
Yeah, I've never gotten to crash a celebrity party. I'll keep that on my bucket list. But yeah, that does sound interesting. Mine's not nearly as interesting. The summer after I graduated from high school, so this is a while back, I was working in a summer camp in New York State and had this event that I had to go to in Key Largo that week. It was a training that I was going to because while I wasn't a camp counselor, I was also a scuba diving instructor. And so we were going to this training down in Key Largo, and it was really exciting and really amazing, but I had to fly. And so I was flying from New York down to Miami, and the rest of the group that I was meeting from where we were in Indiana, they were driving down. And so I was just going to meet them at the Miami airport. They were going to pick me up. We were going to drive the rest of the way down to Key Largo. And so I'm 18 years old. I get to the airport, my flight's delayed. And so, by the time I get there, it's 10 o'clock at night and there's nothing going on. The airport's starting to shut down for the night. Nothing's going on. And so I called my mom in Indiana and I said, "Mom, can you just get me a room at the airport hotel or something? I have no money. I'm 18 years old. I have nothing."
Yeah.
And she said, "No, you'll be fine. Just sleep on the chairs." And so I took my luggage and I went and I slept on chairs in front of the security office. And every 5 minutes, the intercom would give its spiel, "Welcome to Miami, bienvenido a Miami." So
isn't that a song?
Yeah, that was my most interesting one. Cause you know what? There are times when you sleep in an airport because you have to, but I never thought my mom would just abandon me and tell me to stay there.
She was trying to grow you up.
She was. It worked. It worked because now I am not a stranger to any kind of travel inconvenience.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I can handle it. At
Yeah.
18, I slept in the Miami airport one night. So
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah,
everything else is uphill.
that's right.
All right. So we're not here to talk about travel today. We're here to talk about warehousing industry and staffing and training challenges. So, what are some of the primary challenges that distribution centers specifically face in terms of, productivity, workplace management, and what's going on? Because this is a huge topic right now.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is that people think it's a training conversation. And what I have experienced and what I've seen is when I go into buildings and I think about these people in these buildings trying to move the boxes and the volume of goods they need to move, is there's the burden of execution that is on the floor. And so you have these four walls, and the burden of execution lands on the shoulders of these wonderful people that are general managers, assistant general manager, ops managers, frontline leaders, and supervisors. And then you have the frontline workers. And what we see is their job is to scale individual performance. And a lot of the things that they've been given in the tools have said, well, we ran them through the program that said that they should know what to do. Now you go and make it happen. And then they have to do that. And there's just like for us, as we see it, we just like, that's the hard part of the work. Like, thanks for the program that I went through. And it took me, I don't know, a couple days at a computer screen. Like
Mm-hmm.
now I got to go out there and actually get the job done. And that is the hard part. Honestly, I mean, that's what they all exist for. That's why continuous improvement exists, is can we actually do the work at scale in a sustainable way? So their challenges are all those things you said at the beginning. Like, I got turnover, I got people not that interested in the work, it's hard work, like all that stuff. It's getting more and more complicated. And now I have to make do with what I have and with the people that are there and willing to work. And I don't really have the tools to get the job done. So I think that's the biggest issue, is actually executing the job.
So, these outdated training methods, I mean, obviously, getting a new job and sitting in front of that computer to go through the orientation module and, seeing all the things that you're going to be doing is
Yeah.
not it's not that old, but it is. That's been training modules, and that's how training happens and onboarding happens for, 20, 30 years. That's a little bit outdated by now, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, it's part of it. It's kind of like you go to get your driver's. I have I have teenage kids, and they had to go and they had to do a written test. And that's what we stopped at. There's the written test. But to get your driver's license, you actually do a road test. And so when you get out on the floor, it's in the doing that matters. The reason, like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. We used to sell to like learning and development people, and I went to an operator and I said, "Oh, like, proficiency is someone that has went through the training." And he laughed at me. He said, "That means nothing. That doesn't help me at all. Proficiency is, can they do the job or not?" And that's the hard part. And so lots of people do tricks. I see some tricks like, let's gamify it. Let's treat these people like, like Candy Crush addicts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's like bring them in and let's like throw stuff in front of them and say, let's do that. I'm like, that's kind of insulting to their intelligence. These people, like, they're not. We're not trying to sell ads to these people. I know it works for
Yeah.
like Facebook or Twitter. Like, they want to keep you engaged, but these people, this is hard and it's meaningful work. So let's treat it that way. And so let's talk about the work on the floor. So that's how I see it. And I think that's where training probably misses the point a little bit.
So, with Smart Access and your mission in the supply chain and logistics sector specifically, tell us just a little bit about it in general.
So in general, we're trying to drive operational outcomes. Okay, so that's the starting point, not learning outcomes, operational outcomes. And that's productivity, accuracy, safety. Those are like the main things. There's more to it, but that's the main performance. And so smart access, the way we look at it is, if you can take the standards and the behaviors on the floor and make sure that those are working together, then you have the outcomes that you're looking for. Someone has designed this work specifically, and most people have designed it to be sustainable. And we want to be able to get out on the floor and make sure that the behaviors are matching and supporting the standards. And so Smart Access brings in the information to, first of all, gather that information. What are the behaviors from the floor, using supervisors and using the leaders that are on the floor? Gather that information, expose the gaps where that behavior isn't matching to SOP, and then scale the gap closing. And so to do that, there's mechanisms within the platform to expose the gaps and then close the gaps. And then we bring in all the data that you would need to actually have a engaging conversation with that frontline associate, that you can see the data and bring it together. So there's lots of tactics within the platform, but essentially we're scaling individual performance.
Okay. So how is this different than another off-the-shelf LMS, labor management solution?
Yeah, labor management. Well, we'll start with learning management. Learning management drives learning outcomes. We drive operational outcomes. So that's the main difference. It's not really on the floor. It's in the doing. So that it's where the work happens is where we want to be. So that's for that. When it comes to labor management, I would say labor management is like the score in a basketball game. The score is 50 to 68 or something like that. Great. We know what these people are supposed to be doing in the time frame. We know what they're trying to hit. But what happens if we're losing? What happens when our accuracy goes up? In some ways, I would look at it like that is like a EKG. One customer said this to me. It's like Smart Access. There's an EKG that tells you like that's the score. That's like a labor management system. Smart Access is the blood test. Okay, like these are the actual things that we need to change so that the score goes up and to the right. So things that work out. And so that's actually where we fit on the floor, is that we take labor management data. Those are good pieces of data to have when you talk to someone. Like, what's your performance, your CPH, your UPH, your direct time, indirect time? All those things matter, scan times, everything. But when you bring it together with behavior information, then you have something to work with. You actually have meat on the bone.
All right. So what ways does this Smart Access equip those managers to support? I mean, you said, they're entering the information as they're, observing. How does it help them, especially when you're looking at all different kinds of levels of ability amongst employees?
Yeah.
How does that help them support and improve their teams?
So first of all, the big thing, you have a lot of battlefield promotions out there, right? Like there's people that have been in the job, they show up, they're nice people, and they're willing to work. And sometimes they get to be the managers. And that means that doesn't necessarily mean they know the job inside and out. And there's some that know it inside and out that are not so warm and fuzzy. And, like there's different people. Fundamentally, where we start is you have a job function. What is the outcome of that job function? And so what we do when we meet new customers is we ingest all of their SOPs using AI, so it's not hard. We take it into our system, and from there, then we generate an observation based on SOPs so that when they walk out on the floor, they're going to observe someone. So observation is a great tool to engage someone on the floor. And when you get out there, it's job function specific. It's prompt level. It's prompting that person to look for something. And even the responses are telling you how the job is done. So are they putting the labels in the right place? Yes or no? Bad prompt. Are they putting the label in the bottom right corner of the palette? Are they applying it is it sticking the right way or whatever? Like, so it's specific to that. And so then they're reading the prompt, watching the behaviors, and their response in the back end is getting graded and also being put into such a fashion that when the system says, now it's time to talk and coach that frontline leader, it gives them all of the things to think about, all of the things to talk about, and it's all generated from the system. So we give them the ability to walk out on the floor with confidence and have that engaging conversation with that frontline associates. I've seen it once. I walked out with a guy and he was observing someone, and he said, well, this person used to work at Walmart. He says, well, at Walmart, we used to park our equipment on the right side and get off on the left. And he said, well, we park on the left and get off on the right, like whatever. Just for him to have the confidence that that's the difference. Like, I appreciate what you did at Walmart, but because of we're set up, we're not Walmart, we're something different. You need to do it this certain way because it matters. If that guy didn't have that information with him, then maybe he wouldn't have been successful in saying, no, we do it this way because of this reason. And so even also within our platform, you can insert videos at every prompt level of how things, like if you want to do a pace walk, like this is what pace looks like, you could do it, or you can, like if there's a video right there, it says, well, this is what it looks like. And you have videos and you can have articles that support the entire job function. So it's quite comprehensive. So that leader is armed when they go out on the floor to have that conversation.
I mean, that's huge to have all of that frontline visibility right there in the moment as you're doing it, into where those skill gaps are. And as I understand, once you've entered the information, it does give you prompts to then say, oh, well, then this is how you need to coach, or this is what you need to say, or here's a video that you can use to demonstrate. So how is that like really driving that continuous improvement? Is that working to help develop those team members into the the more valuable team members that are getting the work done? I mean, is it better than traditional methods of just, having the shift meeting at the end of the day and here's where we were and, oh, I saw this and I saw that? I mean, this feels a lot more personal and intentional.
Yeah. I think the first thing is when we think about the operation, let's say you have 200 people on the floor. If you look at a bell curve of their performance, it's going to be a bell curve. Like there's people that fit there. And if we can move that whole thing up and to the right, we're winning. And that's the results we see. We see productivity, performance, depending on how you look at it. We've seen buildings grow to 10% improvement across the building. And what we do see is we can see individuals improving 15, 20%, especially new people, where their productivity goes up that much. That's amazing. And the other thing that surprised us when we started doing this is the even high performing people, their productivity went up 6 to 7%, performance productivity, depending, again, how you look at it. And so that's meaningful to organizations where they've invested hundreds of millions of dollars onto the labor on the floor, and it increases that return on invested capital. It's like the most important thing that they do, because it's usually 60 to 70% of their spend is on the labor. And that's just on productivity. We'll probably talk about retention and ramp time, but driving that is just, that's what they're looking for. That's why these continuous improvement engineers are all at these buildings, is to support that execution and increasing that productivity from every person on the floor.
So you've given us a couple of examples of, measurable outcomes. What is a standout, like the best customer significant change that you've experienced with this tool?
There was a large retailer. We started out with them, and we did 3 buildings and used the system, and we were able to compare before and after. And there was a couple things that mattered. One is that we saw buildings improve performance by 10 to 15%. So that was huge. Then the other thing that was exciting for them was retention. And retention increased. Before we were there, they were at about 48% retention at 180 days. And so this study actually was over 2 years, 3,500 people. Okay, so it was a big study. So 48% at 180 days. Quick quits, they're just tough, right? Like you lose people. If you can keep them usually to 180, they're going to stay, right? So that's the goal. There's a lot of 90-day quick quits, but we're thinking, how do we get them to 180? Because then they stay and they are valuable to you. You've recouped your investment to get that person scale. After using Smart Access, again, this is a 2-year study, 3,500 people, that retention at 180 days was 85%. So they're only losing 15% rather than 52%. So, yeah. And we attribute that to a scaled engagement. People know what they talk about when they get on the floor, and they have that engagement across that network. And you've been in these buildings. Some of them are dark. Sometimes you're in the back corner in the stacks. It's not like, some people love it, like, just don't talk to me. But people are human. gotta treat them like humans. They want to, like, what does my boss even think about me? Like, am I going to get fired?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do? I didn't hit my goals. I might, like, so it just, man, don't treat the people in these buildings like just a number and just a unit per hour. Like, we got to think a little bit differently about them. So anyway, that was pretty exciting for them, and they've since rolled across their entire network, and they spend about 25,000 hours a month in the platform. They have a big network, so it's a big deal.
Oh, wow. That's huge. Well, and so I guess that leads to kind of a follow-up question of, yes, we do have workers who care and who want to do a good job. We want to treat them like humans. But we all know that there are those employees that don't care, that are just there because they need a paycheck or because lots of reasons. My father worked in a production facility, a food production facility, and warehousing in the deep South, and there there are different attitudes toward work, and especially toward manual blue collar labor. So how does this help when you're dealing with those individuals that are only there because they have a bill to pay that would normally just, make enough money to get by that month and then say, okay, well, I don't want to work here, so I'm not going to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes just having a bill to pay is enough to keep you there. So, like that's a real, like, we have all been there where it's like, I got to do this thing I don't like because I need, to pay my electricity bill. I think the way I've always tried to build the software is to think about the human that's on the other side, both the supervisor, leader, and the frontline worker. And when you engage, I mean, this is what I believe, is that people want to do meaningful work. And if you can be good at your job, even if it's just because I need to pay the bills, I think that gives you, I don't know, maybe a level of joy or completeness as a human. So I think helping people be even masters of the work, even if it's like a cruddy job, I think is really important. Every one of us wants to succeed in life. Like, we want to, like, make progress and learn and be better. I think that's something that's human. And so, helping someone be excellent at work, I think, is a really noble thing. And these organizations, if they can do that, that's the hard part, is like, how do you make people care? And you see it in these buildings, wonderful people that really do care about these workers. Like, you've been to their stand-ups, you've seen the way they congratulate each other, how they help each other out. It's a really lively environment. And sometimes people, you just want to, I've seen it, like, that guy's in the, like, odd shaped section of shipping and, like, packaging, and we just leave them be and whatever. And that, there's people like that, and you just leave them be. But ultimately, if people can do good work, I think that's what you can offer them, is that they can get their job done and do it well. People will go through what they will. So that's the way I see it. I don't know.
Well, and it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever read the book Gung Ho. It was really popular about 20 years ago, was the first time I was introduced to it. And it's a great book. I've got it on my desk, actually. And that was one of the things I forget. It goes through a couple different examples of animals. And one is the spirit of the squirrel, and then another one's a beaver. But one of them is that, people need to feel like their work matters at the end of the day. And I can see from a company's perspective, of course, you have goals, you have operational goals, you have, throughput goals, but what does that mean to the person, and really personalizing that information, and not just, yay, you hit the goal, you did your job, or you didn't hit the goal, now we're going to have corrective action. And so I feel like this tool gives them at least a little bit more insight into, okay, not only how to do this more effectively or more efficiently, but why it's important to. Or, there's probably a safety concern. I know we're going to get into that subject in just a minute, but it feels like this really gives that supervisor, and to your point, this might be someone who doesn't necessarily have supervisory or managerial training or expertise, but it gives them the ability to put that work into perspective for the employee.
Yes, yes. And it's such an interesting, at least in these buildings, is that it's an ecosystem. Like what you do matters. Like if you don't clean as you go, that means the next person does. If you don't level pick, that means that the next person's got to reach in to pick. Like it all matters. And if you can work together and see that, I think it makes a difference. Then you feel like you're actually part of a team. But if you don't have a mechanism to bring that thinking in and scale it, then I mean, I had a customer say to me, we did what Smart Access did. We tried it. Like we tried to get this done, and maybe we can find a good manager and a good couple of AGMs, OMs, or whatever to do the work. But to scale that across our network, we've tried and we can't do it. And so this is just a tool to scale what they already do. They all know that this stuff is important, but now let's make it easier for them. Let's give them the tools so they can stand on the tool and just actually be engaging and connect with the people. And these numbers that I was sharing, that's the proof in it. And that's, I think, we've talked to our frontline workers and say, well, what do you think of this observation? Like we are observing you, let's say every 90 days. And they say they really like it because it's like someone's talking to me about my work. They're helping me get better. And it's hard as a manager to get off your seat. You're looking at all these dashboards and data points in your office, get out on the floor and talk to the people that are producing for the business. And so that retention number says to me a lot about it's one thing to keep people, but it means that we're doing the right things and helping them, because if they don't like it, they're out of there. Like it's their choice. Like they have opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah.
So does the platform interface with other functions of personnel and employee retention, like HR, timekeeping, or even, I mean, we're talking about warehousing and distribution, like the WMS or the ERP system?
Yeah. So we bring the system is an open architecture. So we love taking data, and it's kind of the place that data should reside, because this is where the rubber hits the road, right? It's on the floor. So we take HRIS data for your rosters and we push information into learning management systems. So almost every one of our customers has a learning management system and uses us as well, because we're a different angle on it. We take in LM data. If they don't have it, sometimes we'll take in WMS data. Time and attendance is something that I think we're working on right now to bring in. It's not that it's complicated, but we're using that to make sure we know who's on shift so that we can say, okay, like here's your labor, here's your volume for the day, here's the people you have on shift. Let's make sure that we have the right people in the right places. And if we need to move people, like if a conveyor goes down and you got to go fast and you got to get your cut time, we got to move the right people over. Sometimes you want to bring your best people. Sometimes you want to bring those that need to become the best people. And that decision's made on the floor. So giving that visibility to frontline leadership is really valuable.
Yeah, which individuals, not assets, which individuals are available at any given time.
Yes.
So yeah. I had touched on safety a little while back. Okay. What types of safety awareness or improvements are ingrained or a part of Smart Access? I mean, obviously you were talking about the forklifts or the machinery and getting out on the right versus on the left. And, that comes down to it's a safety issue because everyone knows what the expectations are. And when we're in these large facilities, there's a lot of heavy moving equipment. There's a lot of heavy, pallets, and it's a dangerous working environment. So safety has to be top priority for not only the employees, but the managers. And, so what kind of safety, I guess, awareness or learning and education is built into these standard operating procedures that you are showing and evaluating?
So there's two ways. One is consistently bringing it top of mind. So there's organizations use Smart Access to do safety observations, audits, and because of the system manages compliance, it helps you because it's easy to do. You pull up your mobile device or a laptop or whatever, a tablet, and it's like you need to get your coverage. It will tell you like who you need to speak with and observe and coach people on. So that's a very specific part of it that helps deliver the way we need to behave to be safe on the floor. And that just scaling that and being consistent, that's number one. But the other thing that happens is that sometimes we think that we've told everyone how to be safe, but we haven't. And so there is an interesting situation. Organization, they were doing break pack, and the person was not using Kevlar gloves to open up, right? So that's a safety issue. So the person raises it. They raised it within Smart Access or feedback loop, and it goes back, and we have the SOP, and the SOP doesn't say that you need to use Kevlar gloves. So nobody is saying use Kevlar gloves. Well, obviously that's an oversight. Let's fix that.
Right.
So what happened, it was actually fascinating. So this was in Dallas. Someone says, we don't have the SOP for using Kevlar gloves. Well, change it in the SOP immediately in Smart Access. That then changes it in the observation. The very next day in Sacramento, the same observation was completed, and they said, we need to use Kevlar gloves. We actually don't have Kevlar gloves on site. We need to get Kevlar gloves. And so from the fundamental way of operating, because the system is on the floor, pulling in information from the floor and has all of the standards inside of it, we can now change. And so for safety, the change just happened organically. Everyone just like, oh, now we need gloves and let's get that going. And then the platform also does, this is something new for us, is that, and this is a funny example in some ways, is we have what are called action plans where we can roll out change to the buildings. So now we have a way to build in the platform to say, okay, everyone, Kevlar gloves are coming to your building. Do you have it? Now that you have it, is it on the floor? Now the program's running, SOPs changed, observations, it's our new standard. We use Kevlar gloves in this area. So it does everything because we're trying to think like, well, what are these? This is the job of these people to execute. The burden of execution is on them. How do we scale that? And that's one thing the platform does. And it helps with the change management as well, because it's all about getting the sustainability out of the front line. So that's how we care about safety.
That's huge. That is so huge. So what really brought about the inspiration for this? Because you seem incredibly passionate about it. Is this something that you saw the problem and decided to develop a platform, or was it something that was just always kind of in the back of your head, percolating and working on? Was it one horrendous incident?
No, it was more of I think I'm interested in systems. And when you go into any process-driven labor market, what you see is there's things happening on the floor and there's management. And management says they just need to do this thing. And the front line says if management understood how things really work, they wouldn't ask us to do that one thing. So you just see that, and it's like an age-old problem. Like this has been around forever. And it was a weird thing. I was reading about Napoleon, and it was just a small thing about his rise to power. And the reason why Napoleon rose to power is he allowed his armed force people to have backpacks. And I believe backpacks were never used until this moment. I may not be I might be remembering it wrong, but essentially it gave everyone backpacks. So there's these people, and they were fighting the Prussians, and the Prussians were very in line, executed to perfection. And Napoleon said, here's a backpack, take everything you need. So when you're on the battlefield, you can make the changes and you can address the enemy. And so they would hide, because they didn't do it like the Prussians, they would hide behind fences and go on rooftops, and they decimated them. And what happens is you brought down the information to the level of the battlefield. You gave them the power to make changes and to attack the problems as they saw. And so that was the inspiration. I was like, oh, all these software systems are top down, pushing down. What happens? And the experiment was, what happens if you give the power to the floor, and will they push up? And that's exactly what they do. The truth is on the floor. It's in the execution. It's in the behaviors. So let's give them the ability to see the behaviors and then the feedback loop to make the changes. And that is what is so powerful about Smart Access. It's not the software. It's the frame and the system of pushing from the bottom up into from the floor up. And that's where the power is, because that's where all these people are there for one reason, is to support the front line. And that's why we built the software. So there's a long story on how we got there. We were working with a retailer and they just introduced us to distribution. I was like, oh my gosh, these people really need this help because it's a really defined and necessary work. Like we really actually need you to do it this way because it matters to us. And trying to do that to a person is very hard. No one, I'm not easy to like, maybe you're the same, but if someone tells me to do something exactly a certain way, I don't want to do that naturally.
Absolutely. There's that just, I don't know if it's some sort of ego, something just pushing back and saying, no, why?
Yeah. I don't want
and
to do it that way. I'm smarter
exactly
than you.
that would be my 16-year-old pushing back and saying, why do I need to do this way? And so then you have to go through the whole explanation of, well, if you do it your way, this is the result. And if you do it my way, this is the result.
Yeah. And it's a great example. And that's what it's like in these buildings. Like we meet organizations and it's like, well, at our building, we do it this way. And then the continuous improvement person's going, are you kidding me?
Oh, no.
Like that is, I get it, but that doesn't, like, we have the whole picture. And so that's the struggle. And so we want to bring that information down to the floor so that everyone can see what's happening, so we can make it work for everyone. So that's the inspiration.
Do you get a lot of pushback from employees who are in these situations where they're like, yeah, there's what's said and then there's what's done? You know, this standard operating procedure is not standard in the lease. This is not the way we do it here. But it's because this is the way we've always done it. Overcoming that objection and that attitude, that just straight no. How does that work? Because
yeah, I built this software. I wish I could experience it more, but I'm in buildings a lot. I think that there is that part, but that's what we built into the software to surface that information. So anywhere along when you're observing or skill building someone or certifying someone, there's places in the software to feed back in, and we get it a lot. This doesn't apply to us. We don't do it here. All that stuff. But that information is rich for continuous improvement, industrial engineering. Mm-hmm. They go, what do you mean you don't do it that way? This is the way we need you to do it. Well, why? And they can actually collaborate and dialogue within the platform to surface those things that are like, and people learn. Like there's people on the floor can tell you how to do it better. And if they listen to it, they're going to improve their organization. It's just, there's all these minds out there that could be helpful. You might as well leverage them. You're paying them to be in your building. They're a resource for you on how to make things better. And so it goes both ways, of course. But yeah, we really were conscious that in the platform, let's allow them to feedback. We need to hear from them.
And that's huge because there are a lot of in the logistics industry. There's a lot of, especially in the past few years, we lost a lot of people through COVID, just because the world shut down. Some of this work was deemed necessary, some of it wasn't, and people just decided. I mean, a lot of the older workforce just decided this is not worth my effort anymore. I'm just going to retire now, retire a little early, and just be done with work. And we lost a lot of tribal knowledge. Yes. And just a lot of historical data that went with them because it was their way of doing it and not the standard operating procedure that's outlined in a dusty binder somewhere on a shelf. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like this gives at least the opportunity to capture some of that while it's still there, while these people are still on the floor. Yes. At least from the ones who are still around, to not lose potentially good information, because the reason they're doing it differently may not make sense to management, but it does make sense to those people on the floor. Yeah. They do it that way for a reason. Yeah. They buck the system for a reason, because they're, whatever they've decided to do or however they've decided to do it was born out of a necessity somewhere along the line.
And it's either I need to be faster, I got to get my job done, or this doesn't hurt my back to do it this way, and the way you told me to do it might hurt. Like, you know what I mean? Like there is a reality to execution that isn't in the binder. And that's why we built our SOP module. We weren't thinking about it, but we're just like, oh, like this is a dead document. If it became a living document with inputs from the floor all the time, it gets better. Like it becomes stronger and it helps everyone in this, the whole chain of operations make better decisions. And so we see people, and sometimes people will chase the dollar and the pay. Like, let's give them more money to do that. And I think you should like pay them really well. Like, this is hard work and they deserve it. But chasing people with the dollar is one way to do it. But also chasing them, let's do excellent work, I think is more sustainable and long lasting. And we all heard the stories of certain organizations that if you don't hit your number, you're out. And those people end up at other organizations and they want to be in a rich environment where they can do their work. And so if you can make that a better place for them to work, they can do good work. They aren't going to chase the dollar. They're going to chase being part of this team. And that does not mean that we're just trying to drive down the pay. Like, we need to be able to make a living here. But it maybe brings the wrong behavior if you're chasing that, potentially.
Yeah, possibly. So what other trends? I mean, we've seen a decline in the amount of labor in this sector. So people are not looking for these jobs. They're not searching for them. They're not interested in them in many cases. They tend to just go to whoever's available in that geography who needs jobs. And even that's declining because better and more fun jobs are available out there. Like you said earlier, standing around in a warehouse is not the most glamorous job. So, I mean, that's one trend that's on the horizon is we're losing labor force in this area. But what other trends are you seeing? I mean, you see fulfillment centers and distribution centers and warehousing. What's happening there that we need to get ahead of? And what is Smart Access trying to get ahead of there?
I think number one is we're trying to not. I think we're starting from a position as this is valuable, important work, and we need to respect the effort. I think that's like the fundamental part of it. And that doesn't mean it's not hard and that we don't have high expectations, but we make sure that, and I see that in the people, and the folks in the buildings. I think that automation is coming. It's getting more and more prevalent. And so I think people's jobs may become, again, this is all active theory, I would say. I'm not an expert on labor markets or anything and how they really work, but I think that automation will change the work that's done in these buildings and people will interact more with machines and help those machines run. And so I think that's a positive thing. Like, if a machine can do the work, the heavy lifting, so to speak, then you can be part of that. That's a good thing. I think that I know that we're bringing a lot of AI into the work, into the leadership on the floor, and that's supporting the work. And then, of course, I mean, people think about robots and they think that they're coming and they're going to replace people and different things. And I get the sense of expansion. If AI increases GDP by 10%, I heard someone say, well, what do you think is going to happen? Just more. So there's going to be more demand, more complexity, more, like, I want my stuff delivered faster and I want it done more precise. Like, it just becomes more. So I think that the work is actually going to get harder to satisfy the end user or your SLA. If you're a third party logistics company, it's going to get harder. So we're going to need more systems, more automation. I think overall it's just expansion. And we're going to need even more people too. I don't think it's going to be less people. I think it's going to be more. Like, I was on site with an organization. They're putting in this huge like hive, cold storage hive, and they're moving everything. It's like a dark place. That building was going to double in size, headcount, to support that. So it's not like it's shrinking. Now, the work they're doing is shrinking. They need less of this certain thing, but more people managing the robots and the thing. So I guess I would just, my belief in trends is it's more expansion, bigger, faster.
That's great for our industry.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I think this group is really resilient. Like, they're getting hit, like tariffs are happening, and this is just a comment, but the tariffs are happening. And I ask them, what do you think? What do you think? And they just say, we're just going to keep executing. We know how to do this. We've been through COVID. We've figured out how to survive difficult times. and they're more resilient than ever. So more change, they're going to be able to handle it. I'm excited about watching these people figure it out. It's exciting.
Yep. Absolutely. Just like me sleeping in the Miami airport at 18, yes. I learned how to manage to get through anything.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining me today and telling us a little bit more about this tool and what you've seen going on in these types of facilities. It's been great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. Thanks, Ellen.
To our listeners, if you found today's episode valuable, please be sure to follow Speaking of Supply Chain on whichever platform you get your podcasts and share it with someone who's shaping the future of operations.